Hello, everybody. This is a talk about the FRESCO project evaluation presented by me, Alessandra Zanazzi, and my colleagues Stefania Varano, Silvia Casu, and Sara Ricciardi, all of us from the Italian National Institute for Astrophysics. I will introduce the project. Stefania will talk about the research questions. Silvia will describe the evaluation tools we used, and Sara will talk about the very preliminary results. Very preliminary because FRESCO is a project still ongoing, and it's a project promoted by the Office of Astronomy for Education Center Italy to co-design playful resources for children up to 12 years old, building on previous co-design experiences that the OAE Italy had in the Mediterranean. We decided actually to expand beyond the Mediterranean and involve a larger community and focus on innovative children-centered educational practices like playful learning and game-based learning, because we have gained quite an experience in these fields and found that these kind of methodologies could be really powerful and effective for the learning experience, because kids actively participate in their own learning. So we issued a call for all NAICs worldwide, and we had a group of 10 participating countries that answered to the call. And these are the countries that are included in the project. To set a common base of understanding for our future work, we decided to share 2 seminars given by experts in the 2 fields, in the 2 methodology, and so that we could define what we intended by playful learning and game-based learning. For example, not instructional activities for playful learning, but activities in which kids are free to explore and be creative, and not gamification, but games where the learning comes from the mechanics and no previous knowledge of the subjects is needed for enjoying playing and for participating. Also, after the first meeting to discuss and share the proposals, we decided to split in 2 groups, one dedicated to the design of game-based learning activities and the other 2 playful ones. We had online meetings from May to October, and we managed to carry out a real co-design work with the collaboration of our different approaches and different minds. And also, all the activity that we designed started from scratch, because actually the proposals were so different that we couldn't choose, and we decided to start it from zero. And also, we had more than 10 online work meetings, despite participants, especially from countries such as Syria and Lebanon, were sometimes suffering connection difficulties due to the terrible situation and the attacks in their countries. These also reflected in a reduced participation in the in-presence residency that took place on 13 to 16 October in Istanbul before the Mediterranean Regional Shaw-IAU Workshop on Astronomy for Education mastered. During the residency, we worked in present for 3 days and were able to make a huge leap in finalizing the process and the activities. In the end, we were also able to preliminary test the activities with the mastered people, with a larger audience. Now we plan to keep on meeting online with the participants in FRESCO in order to conclude and fine-tune the activities and to publish the resources that we have co-designed.
The evaluation presented here aimed to assess participants' perceptions on their personal experience of co-design and their views on the value and effectiveness of such a process. The evaluation of the FRESCO co-design process was ongoing and somehow also iterative, since we were aiming at spotting and assessing possible changes in the participants' feelings and perspectives about the co-design they were experiencing. The main research questions that drove our evaluation were: are participants feeling comfortable in the co-design process? Were they expecting something different? Is the process changing their perspective in any way? And then, is the process perceived as effective in producing somehow better resources than the ones that could have been developed separately? In order to fix at zero of our evaluation, we designed a way of assessing the initial status of our community concerning our research questions. One thing was to assess the previous beliefs about what the co-design was about to be. The second important assessment was aimed to highlight the expectations about how this process would have changed in any way the initial proposed activities used as a starting point for the whole process. Here you can see some of the answers to the question, what do you hope to achieve to this co-design process, that we extracted from the forms of participations to FRESCO. During the co-design process, we continuously kept an eye on the fact that the activities that we were designing were coherent with the definition of game-based learning and playful learning collectively agreed upon. To do so, at first we had to assess participants' initial knowledge of game-based learning and playful learning, about their nature and the aims of these methodologies. In particular, we hoped that all participants had comparable acquaintance with the methodologies we were about to implement in our co-design. And so we checked this during our very first call for proposal, in which we asked why using game-based learning and playful learning. And then we asked that again during our first online meeting, and here are some of the answers on this theme. We tried to assess this inference without being interrogative or demanding, because our aim was to effectively facilitate a process of community knowledge and experience building without being instructional. Since the participants declared that they had no extensive experience in the proposed methods, the offered seminars that you heard about were a good way to set a common base. The evaluation of the final product was not the focus of this work. It was foreseen as a separate and subsequent step to be done with different communities, namely group of students experiencing the activities in their classrooms in the different participating countries.
FRESCO project involves many people who didn't know each other initially and involves a working method, co-design, and a methodological approach, game-based and playful learning, that are not universally acknowledged. Evaluation such a process is not a simple task. We therefore design an evaluation plan in collaboration with an expert in assessment, Sophie Bartlett, from the Office of Astronomy for Education. We identified different evaluation tools depending on different aspects to be evaluated. The final decision on the most suitable tools was obviously influenced by the working strategy, purely online through its initial phase and in presence only in the last few days during the Istanbul residency. To gather evidence and data on our co-design process, we hence use the following tools. The surveys on pre-existing knowledge on the process and educational methodology. We use cumulative online Jamboards to collect disciplinary aspects proposed by participants, previous ideas and preconception on methodological aspects, and fundamental values on which to base the educational action. The survey was very useful to understand the initial level of confidence and or the experience of participants on GBL and PL, and build a shared perspective. To assess the changes in participant feelings, perceptions, knowledge, and expectation before, during, and post the process, we use the tool of a reflective journal. We distribute 4 online questionnaires to the participants with different questions. Some of them repeated, comfortable feelings, inspiration, changes during the process. The main idea was to encourage the self-reflection and to identify strengths and area of improvements. During all the phases, both online and in presence, we recorded the sessions and took notes to evaluate several aspects of the process, such as team dynamics, the flow of the collaboration, decision-making processes, and any possible disagreements between the participants. Finally, in order to gather qualitative insights on the participant experience, in particular network community building efficacy, collaboration, challenges faced, process efficiency, feasibility and replicability, we dedicate a final session, only 1 hour long due to the necessity to let space to the final part of our in-person interaction and work, to a focus group with all the participants. We started the open discussion from the following questions, and we recorded all the audio interviews.
Since at the time of this video recording we just finished the FRESCO residency, we can share only very preliminary results. The atmosphere in the online meetings has become increasingly positive and effective, and the in-person residencies has certainly made everything easier, smoothing out some rough edges we encountered along the way. A key challenge that emerged over time is the efficiency of this process, which required patience and time for results to fully materialize. In the early stages of the co-design process, some participants felt overwhelmed by the variety and richness of the proposal, expressing doubts about the potentiality of the process to produce an outcome. Some participants also shared with us that they had to make several compromises on their initial idea to create a shared collaborative product. As we approached the final stages, just before the residency, participants reported that meeting by meeting, the product was becoming more concrete, thanks to the impressive work group and the rich exchange of ideas amongst all. These collaborative dynamics allow for gradual emergence of a shared vision. One participant diary entry particularly stands out, capturing the general feeling of the group during the closing of the online session. I'm happy that we are getting somewhere. In the last round, we developed a draft of the final game and felt confident we can really do it. Co-design needs time and patience, but it's a great way to exchange ideas and learn from each other. This reflection embodies the spirit of the co-design. It may be a slow and at times uncertain process, but it fosters a collaborative environment where participants can learn, evolve, and ultimately create something meaningful for everyone. We hope FRESCO members will bring the same spirit to their national community of teachers and students to open up for shared, playful, and creative learning. We report a very significant entry of one of the reflective journals. As a matter of fact, not only my ideas are changing, my way of thinking, the way I research for certain definition and topics, the way I discuss with my group members, and the way they and I convince each other. This co-design was a wonderful experience for me to develop and grow. So yes, a change for the better and for the more collaborative approach. In addition to this openness to the co-design process, participants also recognize an intrinsic value to this method with respect to the educational design itself devoted to playful learning and game-based learning approaches. Yes, of course, there is a considerable change in my initial idea. I improved the initial proposal based on the input from different colleagues, and still, the second version needs new improvement based on the new input. Thanks to this co-design meeting, I learned a lot about educational game design. So for now, that's all. Thanks everybody to be with us today. We will publish soon our results on AstroEdu, and we will also share final results in future occasions.